Corsi. I'm here on the board now. And
Hey, Doc.
here it is. How's everybody today?
Good, Doc.
If you can drop me a line here to the live chat on YouTube, I'll post it on Twitter this morning.
Morning, Doc.
Morning. How's everybody?
Good morning, Dr. Corsi.
Got some new Q posts to discuss overnight.
I'm going to archive
them. Great. Don't want to make one more thing. Okay, we're all set. Okay, that's going to be listed down on Twitter. And we have some new posts that came up overnight. And I guess we should start out here at 794. And I'm going to link where people can get the posts so you can see all of the Q posts at this site. Okay, there we go. And I want to make sure I've got the live chat here where I can follow it pretty quickly. Good, that's there. Okay, so I get follow the live chat comments. There we go. Okay, everybody seems to be connecting over in live chat. The sound is good. Okay, why don't we, so 794 is the first one. And it was a short one. It said, that was interesting. It said, new, stay tuned. Everything has meaning or purpose at Jack getting nervous, phase 2. Well, the at Jack has usually meant Jack Dorsey at Twitter. Is that what everybody interpreted this to mean? Comments or any suggestions?
Yes, sir. That seems to be the consensus.
And it's interesting, this whole idea of, phase 2 and getting nervous. I mean, we had the last set of posts also had a reference to Dorsey when it was, I guess, 787. The one at Snowden, where are you? Not Russia. Eyes on, which seemed to suggest that Snowden's left Russia. And they said, you are now a liability. And I took that to be a liability to the CIA, but of course,
right,
it could be a liability in many different ways. Helping Jack, Project Deep Dream, which was evidently a Google project to induce kind of like dreamlike status in people with the it uses neural networking. I found a very interesting reference. Let me see if I can pull it up here for a minute. Hold on. I want to get this. It turns out that I was just writing this morning for InfoWars, an article on the reference to the 1990 William Cooper book, in which he said that the school shootings were a CIA MK Ultra program called Orion. Okay, and what I found was a reference to CIA programs, and Orion was run by the Air Force. And let me just pull this up here and get it exactly. Hold on.
You guys know that they are, I think, banning anti-school and censoring all the videos that talk about crisis actors.
I have heard banned for 2 weeks.
Who is this?
Anti-school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Isaac Green.
Yes. Project Orion was run by the USA Air Force. It involved drugs, hypnosis, and ESB. I'm not sure what ESB means. Short-range, in-person targeting. They were going to control the person by transmission of high frequencies, radar, even microwaves. Dreamland, which is an interesting reference. I don't know specifically ties into the mention the Q makes of this at. Very interesting to me that the Project Orion the school shooting project that William Cooper referred to in his 1991 book, Behold a Pale Horse, was codenamed Dreamland. And it suggests, it says, what it's going to be, that he's going to be pressured over. You know, we know that, I think President Trump is very
Dr.
yes.
I was just looking at Fox News here, and they flashed up on the screen phase 2 of the GOP launches phase 2 of the dossier deal.
Well, that's being. I think it is phase 2. This is the new. Also, by the way, someone's here in the live trap saying, Pamphlet, tell me about the Twitter events last night that led to the nervous comment. Is that the Twitter cutting off people who were following? Is that what that was about? What did Twitter do last night?
Well, Dr. Corsi, I was following Twitter for a few hours last night, and everybody was posting information about David Hogg, and a lot of those people lost a lot of subscribers, or they were just completely locked out of their account.
And he's the one who was on the crisis actors?
Yes.
People are saying over there that my sound is breaking
You're
up.
sounding fine to us on this end. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, let's keep going. If it continues to, people are saying it breaks up, it sounds like a robot. Twitter deleted followers, dumped thousands of followers.
Change server.
Yeah,
It's not Discord.
That won't help because it's not Discord. It's not happening. Otherwise, we would be hearing it too.
Let's see if it persists or it gets better, because I can always.
It's not you either. Just
okay.
What do you have bitrate set at, Brainstorm?
I'm looking.
Dr. Corsi,
Yes.
isn't that 2 in a kill box, meaning phase 2 is dying? We're going to phase 3?
Possibly. Again, I think Q does different things when he puts things in those brackets. A kill box. I mean, I think Nunes is starting in phase 2. Nunes is clearly asking a series of questions about the Fusion GPS dossier, who knew what, how it was paid for, a lot more detailed drilling down. And Nunes has suggested that this is only one of the topics that has been looked into, by the House Intelligence Committee. Clearly, from my perspective, we are shifting the narrative, and Nunes's document started it, but pressure got put on Mueller to produce something, and all Mueller produced were these lame indictments against 13 Russians who were really, a drop in the bucket in terms of their impact, no impact on the election whatsoever, no collusion. And then another lawyer yesterday indicted for lying to the FBI. It doesn't begin to look like Mueller doesn't have anything that would indicate Russian collusion. And that's what Trump has been saying from the beginning. If that's the case, I think it's time where Trump is going to begin the counterattack in a massive way. And the hunters, namely the Democrats who thought that they could impeach Trump, are suddenly going to become the hunted, namely subject of indictment themselves. So, I think there is a game shift here. And it's interesting to see that Q is talking about a phase 2, which would suggest the same. This next one, there were two. First of all, I'll refer to the Snowden, the one we were just reading. And by the way, that continued to say, ES failed, where is ES? And I take that to be Eric Schmidt, not Snowden, because, in the same post, if he says at Snowden, I think ES is a different person. And I think ES did fail. I mean, this whole blaming it on the Russians, which crowdsource was the first to find, and that was funded by Eric Schmidt. The Fusion GPS, I think, has now been completely discredited and is a major issue for investigation. And then John Perry Barlow, which is the next reference in there, defined the end. Barlow, of course, developed the Freedom Foundation and this secure drop for whistleblowers to use that was compromised by the CIA. Barlow himself was, Q suggested, was killed, even though it looked like a heart attack. And then Q ended that one with, the day of reckoning is upon us, and referenced John 3:16, which is the famous verse about Jesus Christ, and in Christ we're saved. Then these next two, the references in the someone posting on the, I guess, Q research board are lost. Were they erased, or what do we figure out about this deep state dream and the Iron Eagle? Do we know what images were there?
Yes, sir, I have them.
You do? For me, they're just a question mark. They're not showing up in my browser.
I have them. I'll post them 1 second.
Great. And I'm not sure why they don't show up in the browser, but I've been trying to get them to pop in. I was about to go over to the Q research board and look it up.
Sir?
Yes.
If you click on the top right number on the post itself, it'll take you to the source and show you the pictures there.
Okay, yeah, that's also what I thought. I just hadn't gotten around to doing that.
I posted them in the live stream text. Well, there's been posts after that, but I chart movement too. I posted pictures of them in the live stream text.
Yeah, and I do get them now that I go over to the Q research board. Yeah, this project Deep Dream, and the next one was the Jason Bourne film, and the paragraph that's highlighted is that Dewey is scheduled to attend the convention for a public debate on privacy rights with Aaron Kellor, the CEO of social media giant Deep Dream. So Deep Dream, when Kellor has second thoughts about giving the CIA access to Deep Dream, well, Deep Dream is in the Jason Bourne films. And then the other reference was to, hold on. Let me see it again. I just lost that. Jason Bourne. What was the other reference here? The Deep Dream software originates in a dream convolutional network codenamed Inception, after the film of the same name, was developed for ImageNet Large-Scale Visual Recognition Challenge in 2014, 2013, released 2015. The software is designed to detect faces and patterns in images with the aim of automatically classifying images. However, once trained, the network can also be run in reverse, asked to adjust the original image slightly so that a given output neuron, e.g. the one for faces for certain animals, yields a higher confidence score. This can be used for visualizations to understand the emergent structure of the neural network better as the basis for the deep dream concept. However, after enough reiterations, even imagery initially devoid of the sought features will be adjusted enough that a form of periidiola, whatever that means, I have to look that word up, that's a new one, by which psychedelic and surreal images are generated algorithmically. The optimization resembles back propagation. However, instead of adjusting the network weights, the weights are held fixed and the input is adjusted. Well, those are neural network concepts of adjusting, going back and forth in the neural network and having it adjust images. And then what Q says on it is, he says, hold on, says big post, at Jack thought he was protected. Well, again, Jack, I guess it's reference again to the Bourne movies, but also Jack Dorsey thought he was protected. No sleep since the drop. In other words, he's been worried ever since, Joe Dorsey's been worried ever since Q on February 18th, which would be now, 3 days ago, mentioned him in Project Deep Dream in the post on Snowden, and says, Task 3 to remove followers in drip order and restrict. Coincidence. That, I guess, it refers last night to removing followers from various accounts and restrict their growth. Coincidence. Hot in DC, no sleep, stay tuned. Well, it makes me think that maybe my drop of even 1,000 followers was not accidental. It's not a huge drop, but it puts it back closer to 100,000 instead of heading to 103,000. And once you get over 100,000, Twitter doesn't give you a precise decimal of how many, in addition to 101, it is. Is it 101.1? Is it 101.9? You don't know. So, comments on that one. Let's see what's going on over in the live stream. We're saying over there. Here we go. Okay, someone says all of my Washington and Florida contacts have been wiped out. Okay. And Deep Dream ties to the Jason Bourne movie. Deep Dream equals Twitter. Clowns use Twitter for mass surveillance and targeted assassination. Iron Hand. Okay, that's interesting. People asking me about my thoughts about it. Breitbart's death and Scalia's death. It's kind of off topic, but I've been suspicious of both, and especially after Q has commented on Scalia. Do we have any other comments on this? Because it does seem like Twitter is maybe engaging in an attack to take numbers away and to monitor various accounts.
I noticed one comment in the live chat. Zach Anon, Dr. Corsi, Q posted within an hour of the Twitter purge last night. Presumably Q was asking @Jack if he was getting nervous because of the move he made with Twitter earlier. Would it indicate that?
I see that it could. I mean, I'm just wondering why Twitter engaged in this, cutting people back.
Like, what's the purpose? What would it really help or solve, right?
I mean, a few hundred here or there, I can see wiping people out is, a major issue. Yes, go ahead.
Dr. Corsi, what if Jack had the counter to the, let's say, MK Ultra microwaves are going out and hitting a lot of people or everyone, and the susceptible are triggered, and Jack thought he had countermeasures in his house. Those have been overridden, and now he's getting zapped 24/7 and can't sleep now.
Wow.
Possible. I mean, it's can't rule it out. I mean, the also the hot in DC. We just had that driver for one of the press. I guess yesterday was found was found to have had a weapon in the car.
From how I interpreted Q, it seems like he called that an intercept, and it was almost like that was a plant just to see how on their toes they really are.
Or I took that. We're going to get to that one in a minute. I took that one to mean that military intelligence tipped off the Secret Service and intercepted that guy.
Sorry.
There's additional observation going on in the president beyond Secret Service to protect him, which I've been expecting to happen. I think that will be the type of intervention we're going to have right now to make sure President Trump stays safe. People are pointing out also no sighting of Assange. We have not seen Assange in the Ecuadorian embassy since before Christmas. I think that this it is suspicious why Twitter last night was restricting this in drip order and restrict. I mean, that it is kind of like a drip. Take 100 or 1,000 followers away or some small number, but not to close the account. Kind of like put you on notice. Hot in D.C., no sleep.
I have a theory about that.
Go ahead.
I think they're just trying to throttle everything related to the school shooting and the Florida thing and any kind of mention of crisis actors, just while people's opinions are still forming. Very few people change their mind.
Well, I mean, if we go back to the Cooper book, when Cooper said, I've got it right here. I mean, it's at page 225. Cooper said he was talking about the government encouraged the manufacture and importation of military firearms for criminals to use. This is intended to foster a feeling of insecurity, which would lead the American people to voluntarily disarm themselves by passing laws against firearms, using drugs and hypnosis on mental patients. In a process called Orion, the CIA inculcated the desire in these people to open fire on schoolyards and thus inflame the anti-gun lobby. This plan is well underway and so far is working perfectly. The middle class is begging for the government to do away with the Second Amendment. Now,
did you hear about Dr. Lubin?
No, what's that about? I don't.
I haven't 100% confirmed it, but I heard that it was the therapist that the shooter had seen about 4 days before. And he has a background in Army intelligence and NASA.
Well, the press has been very secretive about the treatment that this Nicholas Cruz was under. We know he was under some treatment for depression, but I mean, what drugs was he being given? This is the other aspect I've written about and pointed out so many times, that the shooters are typically involved with drugs, very psychoactive drugs, which induce both suicidal and homicidal thoughts in these disturbed adolescents. And, what the whole Orion program was to get a disturbed mental patient, to get them drugs, basically create mind-altering situations, and then program them through hypnosis. So then when we're sent a signal, and Q's even suggested even by cell phone, that signal triggers the brain into launching a homicidal or suicidal attack.
Yeah, I think this Dr. Lubin could be an MK Ultra link.
Well, again, these are things we've got to get more information. We don't entirely know. I've always been reluctant to go in these shootings as far as people to say that the shootings didn't happen. I mean, I think that I still question why we need crisis actors, and it's clear that the mainstream media piles on. And someone's saying they experienced over here in the live chat, they experienced in high school this kind of drugging and producing psychological states through the therapy. Crisis actors could pile on these situations to advance the narrative whenever they occur. I mean, it seems to me that that's very similar to what the mainstream media does. They get their talking points and they pile on. I mean, even Fox News all day yesterday, with a very low day news cycle, not very much going on, were constantly following these kids going to Tallahassee to get the AR-15s outlawed. And I don't think any of this is going to produce the result of gun control right now. I'm kind of convinced that President Trump is saying, sure, let's bump stocks, fine. Let's restrict them, knowing that he's unlikely to get any legislation from Congress. At least he doesn't have to take the rap for opposing it. He can know that Congress isn't going to give him anything to sign. But the point is, these are issues. If the dreaming references mean Twitter, And Jack Dorsey is reacting because he's feeling under some kind of pressure that he didn't sleep. It's no sleep since drop. A big post, there has got to be something going on with Twitter and some pressure being placed on Twitter from behind the scenes. And I'm wondering if it has to do with with Snowden, if Snowden is now out and about from Russia, or Assange. Some greater information about Twitter working with the CIA. We know that Google works with the NSA. Google was largely created by the CIA and is providing information on individual profiles, micro-targeting, while the NSA is probably recording every conversation and every electronic message in the country. So all this kind of targeting and profiling, I think, is going to backfire in the social media once the nation appreciates the extent to which we're under surveillance by things we voluntarily post. Let's go to the next one. 795. The gun found by the U.S. Secret Service was an intercept we provided. That's why I think Q is saying military intelligence tipped off the Secret Service. This is not a game. The Protect code went live. Let's see. People are saying a lot of people lost followers last night. I'm getting even some instant messages on that. The Protect code went live. I think that means in the military, special codes went live to get the president some additional protection. Code signals clean, and we are moving up the timetable. I think that we're going to now find an increasing pace to the Trump counterattack, and I expect we might even this week see Grassley and Nunes, maybe with Goodlatte in the Congress, calling for a special prosecutor to go after the Democrats and the end to Mueller. If Mueller can't produce anything more than witnesses lying to the FBI, that's kind of the last lame prosecution you use when they're mad at somebody and they can't get anything else on them. It's pretty pathetic. Anyone want to comment on that one? Is there anything going on?
Dr. Corsi, did you hear about the suspicious car that was parked in the vicinity of the White House? Somebody in here mentioned it. Whoever mentioned it, are you still in here?
Well, it's cleared up now. There was no bomb in the vehicle. It passed that, and then they've already opened up both Pennsylvania and the other road now, as of like 20 minutes ago. So I think everything's okay, but it was something sketchy, yeah.
Thanks, Farmer.
Yeah, people are saying on the drugs and the like that there's no gun check conducted by local authorities for those on suppression drugs. It's a major issue with a number of people in the population that are under drugs of one kind or another. And this is, I think, the taking of MK Ultra and making it a popular, the pharmaceuticals, Big Pharma has taken over MK Ultra. With the Ritalin in schools and opioids and all these heavy-duty psychoactive drugs that psychologists are prescribing, that if you started saying, well, people with mental illness shouldn't be allowed to have a weapon, well, who's to determine, what a mental illness is? I can remember efforts saying under Obama that the ex-military shouldn't be given weapons because of the post-trauma stress syndrome, and that they were all mentally ill.
If they run with that, then that means that crazy uncle of yours that loves to go deer hunting, he can't have a rifle no more, and that's one of the only men that's going to be able to protect you if S hits the fan. And so to take his gun just because he's the crazy uncle, it's like they're taking your protection away.
Wasn't Bill Clinton diagnosed bipolar?
Well, probably should have been, and with all the cocaine he took. when he
Of
was
course
down there. When he was down in Arkansas importing cocaine for the CIA from Colombia. He's in and out of the house.
Barry Seal was bringing him some of that good stuff.
Yeah, the SEALs and that whole issue with SEALs and everything. I mean, basically, the MK Ultra program never stopped, and the drugging of the population has increased dramatically since the 50s.
Dr. Corsi?
Yes.
What's the manual for mental health? What's it called?
Well, I'm not sure if I can think of one in particular, but there's a
DSM-4.
What is it called?
The DSM?
DSM-4.
DSM.
Diagnostic Statistical.
I think they're on DSM-5 now.
5, yeah.
I was going to say, I think like 2 years ago, I remember seeing something, I think on InfoWars, as a matter of fact, that they already had a classification for resistance of authority and resistance of government. There were actual mental illnesses they already had declared.
Wow.
Yeah, they changed that thing. Not all the time, but they could change it whenever they really want to.
Yeah, I mean, look, the whole thing with this post-trauma stress syndrome is it's a real phenomenon, but it doesn't mean a person's mentally ill. It means a person's gone through an experience that is still requiring, some adjustment to cope with. Very few human beings have gone through what military and combat are trained to experience, and it has a huge impact. But it doesn't mean that our ex-military should be denied their Second Amendment rights. That's where they're headed. Yes.
Shall not be infringed, right?
So they went through and they scrubbed in the last year of the VA records, and they were trying to do the same thing in the Social Security Administration. You can't balance your checkbook. You can't have a gun, according to Obama.
Yeah, see, this is the problem, is that, someone who is suspicious of the government, does that make you mentally ill? Certainly, under the definition of the Red Guard during the Cultural Revolution in China, if you didn't believe in Mao and 100%, you were mentally ill.
Right.
You needed thought reform. I mean, we cannot. There's two different things. One thing is to think about these kids who are heavily being medicated from a psychiatrist and a psychologist. I wonder whether they really need to be under that treatment, and whether the drugs are being given are appropriate for them to be given. I think we overprescribe drugs.
I personally believe that if you trust the government, that's when you should be checked.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the thing that's the heart of the Second Amendment, is that you're trusting the government is a bad idea.
Dr. Corsi?
Yes.
I had done some research just trying to look back at the pattern on the shootings, and I found that a lot of these young shooters are complaining about hearing voices in their head, as we all know. And so I found a possibility of a decoding of the V2 on the end of Q's message, where it says Project Deep Dream.
Yes.
And V2 refers to a voice-to-skull program. I pasted the link in the text chat.
That's extremely interesting. That's very interesting, because it could be, the idea of programming. The Manchurian Candidate was based on these ideas of, a certain sentence being said. And you go back to Robert Kennedy's assassination, and Sirhan, this woman in the polka dot dress who was supposedly by his side, and said something as Kennedy was approaching in the pantry that triggered Sirhan. I mean, that's the, psychological conditioning, drug-induced triggers of words or impulses electronically to put people into action. That's key to the whole MK Ultra concept of mind control. That's the kind of thing they were trying to do.
And also this V2, sorry, Doctor, this V2 was also used for torture methods as well.
You see, I'm saying over here in terms of, I'm listening to people and saying, look, people said they've had PTSD and, they haven't fired their weapon in 25 years.
Right.
I take the PTSD seriously. But I'm very opposed to using it as a disqualification from your Second Amendment rights.
Well, PTSD can come in many forms. It's like a random civilian can get pulled over for drinking and driving, end up in jail, stays in jail on the weekend, and they come out with PTSD because they just weren't used to incarceration. That's a normal civilian now diagnosed with PTSD. Should they not have a gun? I mean,
this is the problem, and I think as soon as we go into issue of mental illness, and also here, veterans are being pushed to admit they have PTSD, perhaps so they can be disarmed. Once you've got that in your record, once you've been diagnosed or you've gotten treatment for the PTSD, how do you get it out of your record? And somebody wants to use that as a disqualification later, they can go back and do it. Well, that's not right either, because these people, someone who has the syndrome with appropriate assistance can manage to get over it. It doesn't have to be a permanent lifetime disability or mental illness.
What if we postulate the idea that these guys that were over in theaters of action, and while they were there, they were put through some kind of an MK Ultra type of treatment, and which eventually led to the PTSD diagnosis. I'm not above thinking that those guys over there, going through all things, that all they have is medical care for whatever issues they've got going on. They could have easily been manipulated.
It's a possibility. I mean, first of all, I think that what we call PTSD today, I've worked with John Spiegel at the Lundberg Center for the Study of Violence at Brandeis in the 60s. And he was a psychiatrist. He, at the end of World War II, he was on a psychiatric group that studied, at that time they were looking at soldiers who couldn't fight any longer. They battle fatigue is what they called it, battle fatigue. And basically what Spiegel found is the same thing that the POWs told me when I was working with John O'Neill and the Swiftboat veterans at Unfit for Command. And that is, if you're in enough battle situations, if you're in combat long enough, everybody gets battle fatigue. It's inevitable. You just can't have weeks and weeks or days and days under intense fire and not have a psychological impact on you. The same thing with POWs. The POWs said eventually everybody broke. If you didn't break, they killed you.
Yeah, but at the same time, when we were reading the MK Ultra documents, stressing these people out, getting to the end, to their breaking point, so to speak, and then applying the techniques as they are now, as they've been improved and to the wherever they're at now. You've got a rich source of subjects to play with. See what I mean?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I'm concerned that could go on. But my immediate concern looking at this issue of Second Amendment rights is that I think I'm absolutely opposed to these PTSD syndrome diagnoses and staying in somebody's permanent record. Where you've got financial problems, whatever. I'm reading some of the posts over here. You get denied the right to have a weapon, or you're permanently tagged so that your employment potential is reduced. I mean, these are the kinds of things I think that we're carried away in terms of the diagnosis of these mental illnesses, which are an easy way to block people from having Second Amendment rights. And it's very easy to have these mental illnesses slip into, well, you oppose the government. You're a conservative. You've got to be mentally ill if you're a conservative. You've got to be mentally ill if you're a libertarian.
Dr. Corsi.
Yes.
So between the period of 2000 and 2006, I deployed 9 times. And in that time frame, because of my duty position, my NATO orders said I could not carry a firearm, and I was in the line of fire the whole time. So that's another way to stress somebody out.
While you were in combat?
Our unit was put within 15 kilometers of Scud missile fire, and they took out a barracks in Riyadh it was civil engineers that got hit. But we were right there because our airplanes were there, and we couldn't carry firearms.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry.
Well, these things, I mean, it's the rules of engagement under Obama are so pathetic and so out of touch with what combat's all about. Every war we've ever had, people talking about Korean War was called operational exhaustion. World War II was shell shock. I mean, you can't be in combat, for endless periods of time without it having a psychological effect on you. I don't care who you are. Doesn't make any. It'll look at the guys who were in the jungle warfare in World War II, and I'm just opposed to the mental illness diagnosis being an impediment for Second Amendment rights, and that's yes. Go ahead.
That also would keep people from getting psychiatric help if they thought that there's. So that would be counterproductive in several ways, I think.
I agree, and I'm also very critical of psychiatric and psychologists for just prescribing drugs and not trying to really get. It's hard. Psychoanalysis is always a long and difficult process. I'm not sure in today's practice of medicine is really considered to be what it was even 25 or 30 years ago. But, dealing with someone seriously who has a psychological issue take time, and a lot easier just to write a prescription and have the person pay you and go away. And that's, I think, where we're headed is we become this drug population, take a pill and it solves the problem. And this is where I think MK Ultra has gone mainstream and given the government the ability to influence people by all these drugs they're taking. It's Aldous Huxley, Soma, and Brave New World. These are the things I worry about in terms of the abuse potential for government control.
Dr. Corsi?
Yes.
This is don't know what I'm doing. With the mental illness deal, it's not only veterans, because it's going to get, if they were to do that, it's going to get to a point where if you've ever been seen active duty, your Second Amendment rights are gone. Just because you've seen combat, it's done, because you have to have PTSD. Kind of like what you were just saying, it'll be an automatic conclusion regardless of what the individual person's situation is. But also, this has already happened in the private sector, where somebody said, told their doctor, "Man, I don't know what's going on, but that medicine you gave me, man, it made me feel like just snapping somebody's neck. I just couldn't listen to what they were saying without almost getting violent." And then the next thing you know, the guy's got the sheriff at his house 2 days later wanting to take all of his guns away from him. This stuff's already happened.
Well,
yeah, these are the things that concern me. Exactly. Yes, I'm sorry.
Diagnosing children with PTSD because their parents are divorced.
Yeah, I mean,
what stops that from happening?
It can go to all these extents.
Exactly.
And, and at the same time, there are legitimate concerns that giving these kids these heavy psychiatric drugs as teenagers is irresponsible, because it's going to induce in a large number of them side effects of homicidal and suicidal thinking. I mean, it's listed in the side effects of the medicines, and doctors should be warned on prescribing them, yet they continue to do it.
I hate to interrupt, but didn't Hawaii say that if you have a prescription to smoke marijuana, you have to turn your guns in?
Well, that's where they're kind of headed, is, they want any excuse to take your guns away. And the psychological excuses to take your guns away have the potential to expand almost everybody. I mean, from my perspective, the ex-military are the first ones I'm thinking of to be guards in schools, and to be monitoring elections. These are people who are patriotic, have had good training, and by and large, we are not making adequate use. It tears me up to see homeless veterans and homeless, coming back and not being put to use in society in jobs that they're really now especially equipped to do. And we have veterans are heralded when they go into the military and while they're there, but afterwards, we've never done enough for the military, in my opinion.
Somebody made a very good point as to put those veterans to work in the schools, guarding the schools.
Yes, I think that'd be a great idea.
Great idea.
Ron Paul said that when he ran for president.
Yeah,
So
Ron Paul. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Which Q post are we on?
Well, we kind of got a little bit off the. We're dealing with this deep dream thing, and what I'm dealing with is that there seems to be some between the MK Ultra references and William Cooper and the. Hold a second.
Sorry, I just joined back in. I had my headphones off for a while. I was eating and getting my kids some food.
Yeah, hold on. Let me just yes.
Hey guys.
Dr. Corsi, while you're looking that up, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I will be going on with Alex Jones tomorrow at 2:30 to talk about all these issues: Soros, MK Ultra, all these topics. I'm sure the InfoWars has picked up on the article I've just submitted. Go ahead. Please.
I just had something really weird happen here. Just often, you got to go about a mile out of the way to get here, and a city officer just pulled up. He parked in front of my condo, sat there about 45 minutes. I was out on the back porch smoking a cig. He rolled his window down and threw me a thumbs up out the window, and then drove off.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Swear on my life, it happened about 30 seconds ago. My heart's pumping right now.
Well, at least he threw you a thumbs up.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, thumbs down would have been really disconcerting.
Yeah,
thumbs up means he internet now or something.
Wow.
I have no idea. I mean, that's really
anyway, move on.
That's kind of a very strange experience.
Yeah, so if something happens to Funk and he's not online, start calling people.
Uh-oh.
Well,
I got a feeling Q is protecting you.
Dr. Corsi, the intercept weapon that they mentioned, are you imagining that would be something that they had disabled before they let it out? Or would they take that sort of
I'm thinking the intercept, when he says the gun we found by the U.S. Secret Service was an intercept we provided. In other words, I've taken Q to be military intelligence, and that military intelligence knew that gun was in the convoy with the press.
And tipped off the Secret Service.
Told the Secret Service, go look for it.
Right.
Okay,
well,
that's how I read it.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the whole Fast and Furious scenario where they were releasing guns to. The best theory I've heard was that was part of a pipeline for weapons to ISIS eventually.
Well, first of all, Cooper mentions that, basically getting military weapons in the hands of criminals. Specifically, what Eric Holder was trying to do with that, he was trying to get guns to Mexico that he could trace back to gun stores in Texas and other places and argue that we were supplying the Mexican drug cartels. That was going to be his argument for gun control. Those weapons were all tagged and traced, which is when the Border Patrol agent Brian Terry was killed. They knew that the weapon used to kill him was one of the Fast and Furious weapons because the serial number was recorded in the inventory. And they were trying to blame that on U.S. Gun stores. I wrote a lot about that at the time because there was some testimony in Congress that surfaced that. Of course, it immediately got squelched. But again, it was another leftist idea to plant the guns in order to have a pretext to remove the guns. They planted these guns so that the Mexican drug cartel would use them in crimes. And then they could trace them back to the gun stores that the ATF forced them to sell these guns. Yes.
God, no, it's just absolutely crazy, isn't it? It's totally ridiculous.
Well, I mean, it's when you see that program, when you see the validation of the Fast and Furious and the congressional testimony, and you realize that that's what Eric Holder was calculating, the Department of Justice, and if you read what William Cooper is saying, it's all believable that the government is, what Cooper is saying is, they're using a mind control program in order to induce school shootings so as to create a public reaction and disarm the public, which is their goal. But they were willing to kill students to do it.
Yep, that's how far they're willing to go. That and more.
Dr.
So yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I had mentioned this last night, and several people thought it was a good thought. I got it from Michelle that does Deception Bites. And you may have already thought this through yourself, but she thinks that it says Deep Dream V2, and then, V2, yeah, and then A in brackets. She thinks that is saying that Deep Dream versus the Second Amendment.
It could be. Hold on, I have to take this away. Andrew, yes. Andrew, good. I'm on the radio. What can I do?
I didn't hear what you said right at the end there when his phone started ringing. What'd you say?
You heard me last night. The part where she thinks that it's Deep Dream versus the Second Amendment.
Okay, I've got a couple. I've got family obligations coming up now and about almost immediately. Let's finish this last one here if I can. Also, by the way, the Q was responding to yesterday this protecting Donald Trump's birthday. One of the anonymous reposted that, and Q says coincidence. So I think it's pretty clear the military intelligence. Trump's getting an additional level of protection beyond the Secret Service, and I'm glad to hear that. I think that's going to be needed, and hopefully will keep him secure. And the last one, AG Sessions, U.S. Cyber Task Force, important. I did notice yesterday that that Sessions created this U.S. Cyber Task Force. I haven't studied yet the press release, but I will today, especially since since Q is mentioning that it's important. Has anyone looked at that press release to tell us what's in it? I'm not sure. We can review that later today, but I'm sure what is being targeted there. Let me just take a quick look and see if I can pull it up.
Sorry, I was eating. I actually did read that article.
What did they say in the Cyber Task Force?
It's a task force. It draws resources from a lot of different agencies within the Department of Justice.
Right.
And it's designed to specifically go after. And they're supposed to create some kind of report by the middle of June. That's like a due time or something for this report, and they're going to target people that tamper with elections. And I got the impression that they were referring to Twitter, honestly, because that's where the connection is with the Jack Dorsey stuff, because he's suppressing conservative voices and pushing liberal voices within the hashtag and stuff.
It says the task force is going to be chaired by a senior department official appointed by the Deputy Attorney General.
Yeah, it's going to consist of DOJ Criminal Division, National Security Division, U.S. Attorney's Office, Community. It's ATF, FBI, DEA, U.S. Marshals, and other representatives from the Department of Justice as needed. This could well be, clearly Trump is saying, well, okay, you guys are all worried about Russian interference, which seems to be minimal and negligible compared to Obama sending over operatives and funding in Israel to beat Netanyahu, or showing up in Great Britain to say, don't vote to pull out of the EU, or Kenya, here's a lot of money to get my cousin here, the communist, elected president. We've interfered in lots of elections, but if Trump is going to have this cybersecurity task force, it's going to be a counterattack. You know, you're going to have to if Eric Schmidt going so deep into the bucket for Hillary, and this Russian narrative that he was pushing with the crowdsource examination of the Democratic National Committee and the loss of their emails. It's clear that the politics of these social media are way over the top. He's already defeated Soros's lying, deceptive net neutrality, which exempted these internet giants from, they were allowed to censor. Net neutrality only applied to the ISPs, to the service providers, internet service providers like AT&T and Verizon. I think Trump is moving toward regulating these internet giants through the FTC, which has much better tools to protect privacy. He's pushing, Trump I think is on board with this hashtag Internet Bill of Rights. And I think that these Googles, Facebooks, Twitters are going to be facing antitrust action before too long, and their censorship policies are going to be taken seriously. I mean, you know, Twitter, arguably, Twitter, Google, and the others did more to influence the election than Russia ever did. And if we really want to talk about influencing the election, let's examine censorship by Google, Twitter, Facebook, and the others to screen out conservatives and libertarians.
Not just that, the rampant fake news regarding Trump during the election cycle. It was a multi-front effort.
Trump is going to come after these people, and he's not. I know nobody else in the country I would trust to do it as much as Trump, because he's not going to be shy about putting these people in his sights and pulling the trigger when it comes to it.
Well, what's ironic about it is they're using the excuse they're going to use to build this task force is basically the Russia collusion that they've been pushing. So it's like, okay, well, there's this Russia collusion. Huh? Well, we'll investigate that. Let's create this task force, and it turns out it's them.
Well, it's the Q says the hunters become the hunted.
Oh, while we have you here, Doc, and all of these listeners who are tuning in, I was thinking we might want to run him and everybody tuning in through this little side project we've come up with, this name and shame thing. Who was here last night for that while we discussed that?
I was here.
Awesome.
I know Justin was.
Yeah, okay, he's not here. That's right. Brainstorm, you're here, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So it's essentially what we're this little side project we're working on here. We want to put together a database type thing, and I've gotten, by the way, a ton of offers for help on this. And if any of you who are out there who have messaged me or listening, I'll get back to you soon. So anyway, basically a database containing a list of all these people in media, in mainstream media, including, producer level people, people behind the scenes, executive level people, and going through all of their public statements, anything they've said on the record, looking for like hypocritical statements, falsehoods, and everything, and just putting them into a database organized by individual.
That's an interesting idea. Let's think about it some more and get some time to reflect on it. I'm going to have to go now, but I think we've gotten through these. These are, a really interesting advancement from what we had over the weekend. And it looks to me like the Trump counterattack is just getting into gear, and that Mueller and the others, the Democrats, are now going to have to go on the defensive. I would not be surprised to see a move made to disband Mueller's effort if this is all he's got. Okay, I'll check with you later today. God bless, and I've been very interesting discussion this morning. Thank you.
Doc. Hey, Doc, I'm going to be sending you an email today to your Earthlink account. Be looking out for that, please.
Okay, fine. And I'll be around all day for most of the day. Be gone here for a couple of hours.
You got it.
Thank you.
Thank you, bud.
Great. God bless.